Support for this program comes from viewers like you. Thank you.
This is the show where the interesting characters of Kansas come to share their stories. This week, we have a special 2-for-1 edition. 2 free spirits, one in the spring of life and the other in the autumn. They both talk about stepping out of the box to live their dreams. One's a world traveler, the other a stand-up comedian. He is known as Arizona Lou, but don't let that fool you. Lois South says he is Kansas to the core. He grew up in Newton, Kansas. After graduating from high school, Lewis earned his undergraduate degree from Bethel College. He then went on to graduate school in Arizona, where he got married, started a career, and raised a family. Along the way, Lou South developed a wide range of interest, including kiteboarding, photography, boxing, and more. And now, at age 77, he has emerged as a stand-up comedian. Lou's comedy act pokes fun at old age and the generation gap. Fans of all ages fondly refer to him as America's favorite old man. Old, maybe, but his attitude toward life is as fresh as a teenager's. Emily Gnefkow is a Kansan born and bred. She's out to experience the vast array of cultures that span the globe, and in the process, she is learning more about herself and life here in Kansas. She was on track for a successful career in behavioral sciences, serving Kansans with developmental disabilities. But after 3 years, she found herself burned out and consumed with wanderlust, dreaming of a life of travel and adventure. At first, that dream seemed unattainable for this young Kansan of modest means, but she has found a way. Over the past 2 years, Emily has visited some 24 countries and every continent but Antarctica. Now Emily is in between trips and is here to talk about her unconventional life and the lessons she's learning along the way. Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom, and we're so pleased to welcome comedian Arizona Lou to the program, also known as America's favorite old man. Wow. Tell us first why the name America's favorite old man.
Well, I've taken lots of people on kiteboarding excursions in the Outer Banks off the coast of North Carolina, a place called Planet of the Apes. And kiteboarding, of course, is where you're flying a huge kite up in the air that's pulling you on a surfboard or a wakeboard. And I've taken lots of people on excursions, and I'm usually the oldest man. In fact, I'm always the oldest man, and people seek me out to do this. And so I guess that's where favorite old man comes from. Also, you can't trust Google. They evidently didn't check with my ex before they gave me that one.
Well, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself. We know that you are originally from Kansas, raised in Newton, just kind of up the street from Wichita.
Yep.
But most of our viewers have never heard of you, and so they're wondering, well, who the heck is this guy? So tell us, who are you?
Well, I was born in western Kansas, a little tiny town called Dresden. We moved to Augusta, which is near Wichita. And then when I was in the 2nd grade, we moved to Newton. And that's where I graduated from high school, graduated from college, Bethel College, and taught at Arkansas City for a year and a half, and then moved to Arizona to work on the Navajo Indian Reservation. And Arizona kind of has stuck.
And you went to college in Arizona too?
I went to college, well, I went to college ASU, and of course in...
That's Arizona State University.
No, I'm sorry, WSU. My
Here
mistake.
in Wichita.
I went to Wichita,
Right.
took some classes at Wichita. Then I got my master's at Flagstaff at the Northern Arizona University. I also took classes at ASU, which is in Phoenix,
Right.
Arizona State University.
Now, you've done so many different things in your life. You've taught college, high school, elementary school, I should say. You've taught kids physics. You've enjoyed photography. You've enjoyed a little bit of boxing. You also went as far as you do kiteboarding. What else do you not do? Or you may want to add to that.
I do photography related to the comedy and to the kiteboarding and other things. I'm a certified flight instructor. I figure you got to do stuff that's fun, and it's not always easy, but you know, you do things worthwhile, and you've got to do some stuff that's not real easy.
Now, you became, after your professional life, a comedian.
Yes.
How did that professional life prepare you to become a comedian?
Well, I was in front of students a lot. I took a Toastmasters class, so I learned how to present myself. And I just have fun entertaining people. And I took a class in improv, found out it wasn't for me, and decided stand-up comedy would be a lot of fun. That was about almost 5 years ago.
That was just around the corner.
Just around the corner, you bet.
5 years ago. So how did you prepare? What did you do to become this comedian?
I have taken several classes. I've read lots of books. I've done lots of practice. I've bombed some. In comedy, that means nobody laughs. I've bombed some. I've toured 45 states so far. This appearance is I have to cheat here because I don't have a memory. It's my 732nd appearance, and I'm just going for more. And typically, I'm the oldest person in the room, and definitely the oldest comedian.
You got the name Arizona Lou. Is that from comedy or from something else?
It's for something else. I was an instructor at a windsurfing clinic in California, and after the weekend session, they were going through the student reviews, and they said, "Oh, Lou was great. Lou is the best." I was popping buttons. Well, not really, because I was wearing a T-shirt, but there was another Lou that figured everything was about him. And someone says, "Hey, you're the only guy from Arizona, so why don't we call you Arizona Lou?" And that name has stuck for over 36 years.
So how would you describe your style of comedy?
Being old, being active, and dealing with what life gives us. For example, I just about lost these 3 fingers when I was in the Dominican Republic, kiteboarding. I should have stuck with kiteboarding. Instead, I did something dangerous, stand-up paddleboarding. And in the hospital, I had nothing better to do than to figure out what was funny about the whole thing. So out of adversity, hey, you get comedy, because everybody has adversity and everybody needs to laugh.
Now, you enjoy, during your comedy acts, poking fun at old folks and the generation gap. Why is that?
Everybody needs to look at their situation and say, hey, I like where I am. There's something neat. There's neat things about being old. I mean, I've got all these wrinkles and splotches. I've worked a long time on them. And in today's society, they say, oh, try to cover them up, spend money with us. Young people need to be happy with where they are. And I think that all age groups need to enjoy life, not be complacent, but to be happy with where they are in life and enjoy it.
All right, so let's take a break. We did do about a 5-minute stand-up act with you in front of a live studio audience. So let's take a break and see what you're all about. Let our audience see what you're all about.
America's favorite old man.
All right.
Hey, thanks. You guys are great. And thanks for letting an old guy up here. You wonder how old? I'm 77. Now, see, that was just a little applause. In comedy, we call that a sympathy applause. I'm so old, I worry about what's going to fall off. Next. I'm not even Caitlin. I'm so old I was born in MCMXLI. See, yeah, a few of you recognize that as Roman numerals. I always have to explain it to Fox News. When I was a kid, that's all we had. Not Fox News, the Roman numerals. And back then, every time I'd dial a number, I'd get Roman charges. We had a whole different meaning for XXX. Oh, come on now. Looks like you need to watch more Sesame Street. If I'm lucky, I'll remember what I want to say. And if you're lucky, I'll wander off somewhere. Da, 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 da. Silver alert, silver alert. I just hope I don't wander off to Chicago. Do you see the news? Shootings there are up 88% over last year. Murders are up too, but only 72%. Looks like to me they need to take more gun classes. I did comedy in St. Louis. That's the new murder capital of the world. And I was disappointed I didn't collect any bullet holes. I make up for my waning physical prowess with my superior senior stupidity. Yeah, in my case, so senior and stupid, doesn't it remind you of Congress? And in my case, I picked my electric toothbrush up from where I dropped it and brushed my teeth. Hey, I hadn't done anything yet. I was just standing there. It's waterproof. I rinsed it off, and every week I cleaned the toilet. Not with a toothbrush. Well, I need to introduce who I am. I go by Arizona Lou to avoid confusion on my travels. And before 1912, when Arizona became a state, I went by Territory Lou. And before that, I went by Caveman Lou. And these get worse. Before that, Ditch Lou. I told you they get worse. And it was, after it grew, Grand Canyon Lou. And now, I think it's back time for the interview. I'm Arizona Lou. Thank you very much.
All right, that was quite funny.
Thank you.
Your small studio audience had some fun with it. Are there jokes that you would not do?
I don't do jokes that involve what some people call vulgar language. I just don't. I was taught not to, and it's not my style. Although I do delve into some adult concepts sometimes, and depending on the crowd, that can be lots of fun. Mm-hmm. I don't do race. I don't do politics much at all, not race at all, or not much.
So what would you say is the key to good comedy?
Unexpected stuff. People laugh when something is totally unexpected. And that is a skill that I'm still working on.
That leads me to ask the question, do you regret not entering comedy earlier in your life?
I don't think so, because I was doing other things that were cool. And if I entered when I was younger, I couldn't say I'm America's favorite old man.
Okay. Louis South, thank you so much. America's favorite old man, Arizona Lou. So many names. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Victor.
All right. And I'm pleased to welcome world traveler Emily Gnefkow to the program. Welcome.
Hi,
It's a pleasure to have you.
it's great to be here.
You have all kinds of interesting stories, I can
do.
imagine. But before we begin to talk about your latest adventures, which will begin in a moment, tell us, how did you develop this fascination with traveling around the world?
Sure. I grew up traveling around the country with my family. My parents always took us on road trips and vacations, and I did a lot of traveling with a church group when I was younger. And so I kind of always had it in me that I loved to travel, and I really thought that traveling around the world, you had to be very wealthy to do so. And when I learned on the internet about budget travel and long-term backpacking, I had a little aha moment and said, okay, I'm gonna go for it.
And so you packed up everything and began traveling around the world.
I did.
But you went to college,
Mm-hmm.
graduated, and started a career.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So I worked for 3 years up until the point that I started traveling, managing group homes for adults with developmental disabilities up in Lawrence. And it was a great experience. I was using my degree, which is awesome. But I was, that's a very tiring job. It takes a lot. And so I was kind of ready to do something different.
So at what point, Emily, did you decide to make this drastic change, take this drastic step in your life as a young lady?
Yeah, so it was literally one day I was scrolling through Facebook and saw a clickbait article that said something about a woman traveling for 2 years, and clicked on it, read about her story, started looking up other people who did it, and that day I made my decision to go on this adventure. And about a year later, I was on my first one-way plane.
Weren't you afraid making such decision?
Not really, it was more excitement.
Was it?
Yeah.
So what was your greatest concern about traveling the world, Emily?
I think finances was definitely the biggest thing on my radar before going.
So how did it work? With finances being of concern, how did it work? How did you manage financially?
So what I did for about 10 months, I saved up. I got a second job. I put up my apartment on Airbnb on the weekends. I drove for Uber, and I sold everything I owned, including my car, gave up my apartment, everything, and saved up about $17,000, and then traveled on a budget. I cook in hostels, I take public transportation, that sort of thing. And that allowed me to travel for 10 months without working, just on my savings.
$17,000.
Yeah. And I came home with a few thousand left. So
Ooh, you're a good financial manager.
I try.
What has been your best experience while traveling?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I've had so many. I think overall, it's not really a specific one-time experience, but I think overall would just be the encounters with people. The people I've met along the way have really had a huge impact on my life. I've met some lifelong friends. I've made connections with local people in the different places I've been, and so having people welcome me into their home or into their culture has been really humbling, and just learning about different ways of life has been a really cool experience.
So what about the worst experience?
I think probably the very worst experience was when I was in Ecuador earlier this year and had my purse cut open on a bus and my wallet stolen.
Being an American and traveling the world, did you find any hostility? Did people open their arms to you, or just describe that experience?
Yeah, no, I haven't experienced any hostility. People are really nice. That's one of the big lessons I've learned on this journey, is that people are good. Sometimes you get comments about certain things happening in America that people may or may not agree with, but I've never had any hostility or anger or anything directed towards me.
Well, you've shared some pictures with us,
Yeah.
Emily. So let's take a look at the monitor
Okay.
and tell us about the pictures that we're looking at.
Sounds good.
First one is with you in the phone booth, and
Yeah.
I'm assuming in England.
Yes, so this is in London, England, last summer. And that is in Edinburgh, Scotland, just at sunset.
So you do take a lot of pictures
I
too.
take a lot of pictures. This is overlooking Bogota, Colombia, and this was just earlier this year in April, I think, of 2018. And that is in Guatapé, Colombia, earlier this year. This one is the red waterfalls outside of Cuenca, Ecuador. This is also in Bogota, Colombia, on my first trip in 2016.
And that's you?
That's me, yeah.
You look different.
Do I?
Yeah.
That was a couple years ago. That was snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia in October 2016. That was when I went rafting in New Zealand a couple years ago.
And you have tons and tons of pictures,
I do,
Emily.
yeah.
So what have you learned about yourself on this world journey that you've been on and planning to go back on?
Yeah, definitely learned a lot. I've learned, I guess, how to be more patient and understanding of what's going on around me, and I've kind of learned about how I deal with stress, because I've had stressful situations that are unlike anything that you would have in your day-to-day life or work life at home. So dealing with those things and kind of how I've been able to problem solve and get through those tough times has been a cool journey.
What did you learn about Kansas being away?
One thing that I've learned is that there is no other place in the world, I haven't found another place in the world that has the beautiful skies and sunsets on a consistent basis like we have here. Every time I leave, I miss the sunsets and sunrises, but I don't see those very often. But I've seen a few here and there, but I've never been in a place where night after night after night you just get this gorgeous sunset, and that's so cool to me.
What about America? What did you learn about America being abroad?
I learned that people don't hate Americans as much as we kind of think they do. We kind of have this mindset that we're not well liked, and that's really not true. A lot of people around the world really love America and love Americans, and they do look up to America, even if, you know, sometimes I come across people that don't agree with everything that's going on here, but we're not disliked like we think, and we are very lucky. We have a lot to be thankful for here.
What have you learned from living among other people with different cultures?
I've learned to not make assumptions and not have expectations about certain things, because people live differently, and so you have to kind of be open-minded to those differences and accepting of those differences. And I've learned also to just be very communicative and ask questions if I'm unsure about something, because I never want to go into somebody's home and do something that could be disrespectful. So just having an open line of communication and respecting their culture and being open to learning about it.
Okay, so Emily, this is a very important question that I'm I'm sure the viewers are wondering, and it is, at what point will you decide it's time to settle down and get a more permanent job, a home, a husband, and or kids?
That is not in my plans right now. I am very happy living this lifestyle and will hopefully continue to do so. And my ultimate kind of longer term dream is to actually live abroad more permanently.
Oh,
Yeah.
you have a country in mind?
I'm kind of thinking Colombia right now. I just spent several months there and really loved it, so it's definitely high on my radar.
So what is the single biggest thing you've learned in your travels?
I think the biggest thing I've learned is never make assumptions. Because when you make assumptions about anything, because when you make assumptions, that's when something is more likely to go wrong or go, how you don't expect it. So don't make assumptions.
And how could people keep track of you? Is there some system in place that they can follow you around the world?
Absolutely. So
tell us about it.
The best way to find me is on social media. Instagram is my most used platform, so you can find me on Instagram or on Facebook at Kansas Girl Travels World, and also on Twitter at KS Girl Travels. I have a website, which is kansasgirltravelsworld.com, and you can contact me through the website or slip into my DMs on Instagram or Facebook.
If nothing else, what is the one thing you want to accomplish on these trips that you've made throughout the world? The one thing, if nothing else.
That's a good question. I think the one thing I want to accomplish is just continuing to visit new places and learn more about the world and the people in it.
On that note, Emily Gnefkow, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And good luck on your journey, and we
you.
hope that you have a wonderful experience and be safe.
Thank you so much.
All right. And thank you for watching this edition of One on One. If you have a question or comment, please send us an email. The address is oneonone@kpts.org. We enjoy hearing from you. Until next time, I'm Victor Hogstrom. Take care.